My name is Sydney Miller, and I did my author discussion over Octavia Butler. So, this is just going to be a little bit of a background about Octavia. So, Octavia Butler is a very well known African American female author. Several of her novels have won many awards, and she tends to write science fiction novels. And although her books were written during her lifetime of 1947 to 2006, they are still very relevant today, especially the book I'm going to be reviewing. It's extremely relevant to today's current events. And her works explore various topics such as Black injustice, global warming, women's rights, and political disparity. And to this day, her legacy continues as more and more people continue to read her groundbreaking novels. So this is going to be a little summary of Parable of the Sower. So this novel is about a young African-American girl named Lauren Olamiana. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm not exactly sure, and her journey to freedom and sustainability. So she grew up in Southern California, where the society there was struggling with issues of climate change and economic inequality. Although Lauren lived in a safe neighborhood outside the walls of their area, it was very dangerous. It was a lot of crime, a lot of criminals, a lot of drug use, and it was low income and very destructive. So they were constantly in fear. And Lauren's father was a pastor, but she was very skeptical of the religion he followed, which is Christianity. And so she wanted to escape north and start her own religion, which later in the book we find out she wants to call it Earthseed. And then her entire community ends up being attacked and is left absolutely destroyed. And so the book basically is showing her whole journey up north to be able to spread her religion. And she goes through a lot to be able to save society from poverty and resource scarcity. So the last two chapters took place in the years 2026 and 2027. So I did like a slide where I just did the main points that happened. Obviously, there's a lot more that happened than this, but I just like the main events from those two chapters. So in the year of 2026, Lauren's youngest brother, Keith, returned home from living outside the community walls, and he was taken in by a group of young criminals because he was able to read and write, and that was not common for especially children. And a month later, he's found dead after being beaten and tortured. And this was the moment in the book where Lauren realized how permanently damaged her family was. And so she began to make plans for her escape. She wanted to leave when she was 18 years old. And she titles the verses she's been working on called, she wants to name them Earthseed, the Book of Living. And then Lauren's best friend Joanne and her family move away. And shortly after, Lauren's father is found missing. And Lauren's boyfriend, Curtis, also wants to move up north, but she is conflicted because she knows she needs to stay home to protect her stepmom, Corey, and her other brothers, especially now that they have a lack of income without her father. And in the year of 2027, Lauren's community was attacked by pyros, which were basically drug addict criminals. They would paint their face and they attacked the whole community. They set fire to the homes and killed the residents. And Lauren, a man named Harry, and Zara are the only three survivors of the entire community. So they grouped together, they found each other, and they agreed to travel up north together to escape. And on one of the nights during their journey, Harry ended up being attacked. And Lauren surprisingly smashes the guy's head with a rock, which was shocking for Harry and Zara because they did not expect that from her. But then she explains to them her hyper empathy and how she feels everyone's emotions really strongly. And so she was just doing it to save Harry and also to take the man out of his misery. And then later that day, she also shows them her Earthseed book and then explains her feelings about God being change. And later in their journey, they meet a family. Their names were Travis and Natividad Douglas. And then they also had a kid named Dominic. And so they included them in the group. They all decided to keep traveling together. And then as more time passes, more members join. Their names were Taylor Bankel and Allie and Jill Gilchrist, which were two sisters that were found injured. And Bankel and Lauren had a very large age difference. Bankel ended up being about Lauren's father's age, but they were instantly attracted and drawn to each other. And Lauren felt safe around him. And the whole group decides to head to Bankel's property where him and his sister and her family live there. And they finally arrive to the land, and all they see is ashes and five skeletons. And after a long debate, they decide to eventually stay on the land instead of go to somewhere else. And a lot of people were lost on the journey, so they each planted an oak tree for each person that they lost along the way. And then this began the building of the community of Acorn. And so this is the end of the book. They start this new community, and Lauren tells them all about Earthseed. So they're starting this whole new life, and after all this huge journey. And there was a lot of themes in the book. A huge one was religion. Lauren was very conflicted throughout the novel because although she grew up with her dad being a pastor, and so he was very religious and very Christian, and he was deeply rooted in God and the words of the Bible, but Lauren just saw God in a different way. She saw God as change, and like the universe is always changing, and she really believed in growth and development. And so this inspired her to create Earthseed. And she saw the universe as always changing and developing, and religion is part of the constantly evolutionary cycle of the world. And then compassion was another big theme. So Lauren had a hyper empathy. So she was able to feel others' emotions as if they were her own. And she was unique in that. And so this led her to take desperate measures during desperate times, even violence when necessary. This helped her out in the end because she established a strong and supportive community by the end of the book. Change was also a huge theme in the book because Lauren had to completely leave her old life. She lost her entire family. They were all murdered or lost, and she had to start completely fresh, go on this whole new journey to a whole new place, meet all new people. And so change was a huge theme. Lauren changed a lot throughout the book. There was a lot of character development, and Lauren believes that God is change, and growth and change are important to her and her religion. And community was also a super important theme in this book. Lauren lost every aspect of her old community, all the people, the location. She'll never get to go back there again. It was completely destroyed, and all those relationships, and then she had to build a completely new one. And this took a great deal of hard work and determination to establish a new community of her own with her new religion, Earthseed, and they titled the community Acorn. This book was super parallel to our current day. So it actually takes place in Los Angeles, California, where climate change has caused heavy resource scarcity, economic inequality, and poverty. We all know about how bad climate change is getting, especially in LA. It's a huge current event right now. California is having really bad wildfires, and it's crazy to me that this book was written almost 30 years ago, but it is so accurate to today's times. And the smog in Los Angeles is drastically impacting the air quality. Poverty and homelessness is a big issue as well. And then drug addictions, human trafficking, race, gender, and gun violence are just some of the other issues that were shown in this book that parallel directly to today's current events.